Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see such a great crowd here today. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of participating in a panel, and I was competing with the NFL playoffs, some basketball games. I think we had a dozen people there. So it's good to see so many here today. But I'm not so sure it still isn't Sunday, because just like yesterday, everybody still wants to sit in the back of the room. I'm pleased to share the success and lessons learned from the realignment of the Idaho Transportation Department's organizational structure. I strongly believe that unless organizations first look at how they are structured, it may be impossible for them to set and achieve their performance goals. Our experience and lessons learned, I believe, can serve as a national model to improve the effectiveness of other state agencies. When I started as director of ITD in 2010, there's a dark cloud hanging over us. The legislature believed that the department was inefficient and ineffective. They no longer listened to or believed in ITD's leadership. As a result, the legislature ordered a performance audit of the department 2 years prior to my arrival, and that was highly critical. The governor had so little confidence that ITD would implement the audit's recommendations that he issued an executive order. Now, executive orders aren't usually issued to require an agency to address audit recommendations, but not only was one issued, it added further requirements to our department. In addition to the strained relations with the state's elected officials, ITD had little or no interaction with the contracting and business communities. In fact, a group of businessmen attempted to organize a transportation council for the sole purpose of giving the department policy direction. The media fed on these negative comments and actions, and as you can imagine, in this environment, the department's employees were frustrated and morale was at an all-time low. My first two priorities as director were to meet with every employee and then to repair the damaged relations that we had with the elected officials. I spent my first 9 months listening and assessing the organization, and here's what I found. ITD has good employees who want to do the right thing. They want to do the very best that they can. However, I also heard employees tell me about having to report to multiple masters, about being told how to do their jobs instead of being asked how best they could do their jobs, and they believed their ideas were not being heard. Fundamentally, ITD was a process-based organization rather than a results-oriented organization. There were multiple steps and layers that every decision needed to filter through. And the emphasis wasn't on the idea, but whether or not it had been reviewed and approved up and down the organizational structure. The multiple layers in this process emphasis made everyone, and really no one, accountable for decisions and their consequences. Employees viewed the whole process with frustration, feeling that their hands were tied to make good decisions and improve the way that things were done. Here's what I found while looking at the organization. There were 9 layers of management between the frontline workers and myself. We had 62 instances of one employee being managed by just one supervisor, and we had 11 assistant positions. There was a lot of duplication of effort, especially between our headquarters and our district offices. As you can see, I brought our organization charts. They're along the back wall over there. And the bottom chart shows our old organizational structure, and the top one is the new structure. And to put it in perspective, the colored-coded boxes are supervisory positions, and the white boxes are frontline positions. So you can see in the old structure, many, many more color-coded boxes than white boxes. ITD was using a 1960s civil service model to run a 21st century organization. Our employees were rewarded and promoted based on being a supervisor, not by the results they achieved. The old organization encouraged the building of a pyramid with layers of bureaucracy. Those responsible for making decisions could hide behind the layers and not be held accountable. Those who wanted to solve problems or be innovative had to wait as decisions ran the bureaucratic obstacle course. The bottom line is this: there are too many approval steps required to render quick and effective decisions. It was no surprise to discover that ITD focused more on the process than on the outcomes. In my second year, we focused on aligning the organization to address these problems. And the goal was not to realign ITD just to move boxes around. We had specific goals in mind. Make better decisions by placing control closer to where the work is being done and the operations are taking place. More timely decisions with the reduction of supervisory layers. Greater efficiency with an increased span of control. Increased customer service by putting more employees on the front line of the organization. Greater accountability by having clearly defined roles, responsibilities, and measured expectations for each level of supervision and management in the organization. Save money through efficiencies gained by realignment and reduce duplication of effort, and this is a big one, no employee would lose their job or pay as a result of the realignment. So what were the results? We substantially completed the realignment in 8 months, not the 2 years that we had anticipated. 9 layers of management and supervision were reduced to 5. And each of those 5 layers now has clearly defined roles, responsibilities, and measurable expectations. And I think clearly defined roles for each level are critical, and this was a key to our realignment. Level 1 is the director. I'm accountable for the performance of the organization and the primary contact with the Transportation Board, the Governor's Office, the Legislature, and other state agencies. I established the vision for the department. Level 2 is our executive officers. Their role is to establish strategic direction. They also must remove obstacles that interfere with the work being done and ensure effective communication and coordination amongst all areas. Simply stated, they must be there to break down the silos. The executive team members are held accountable and measured by the goals of our strategic plan. Level 3 is the administrative level. These are typically division administrators and district engineers. This group is responsible for establishing the tactical direction needed to achieve our goals. This group is measured through business plans that includes goals, budgets, and timeliness of the programs which they oversee. The next level is the managerial level. This group is responsible for turning programs into projects. They are held accountable for delivering individual projects within defined scopes at or under budget and on time. This group is measured on project performance. Level 5 is the first-line supervisors. They must work directly with the frontline staff to ensure the daily work is being done. They are measured and held accountable for the daily performance of the work group that they supervise. Now, you can imagine when there were 9 layers, it was hard to hold employees accountable or clearly distinguish roles because the roles would begin to blur, and it's really difficult to determine who's ultimately responsible for what. So we think these 5 clearly defined layers helps us keep that in check as far as accountability and measurable performance. Now, I know that's a mouthful, and I said it was a key to what we did at ITD. So if you're interested, I've had some cards made up with the slide on one side and then my comments on the back, and I'll be available to hand those out after our session today. Okay, there we go. We also eliminated 62 positions that only supervised 1 employee. 11 assistant or similar type positions were eliminated or redefined, and 47 duplicate positions were eliminated. We increased our average span of control for each supervisor from around 3 employees to between 8 and 10. And now, not every position reports through our chief deputy, which allows him to function more as a lead worker with the other executive officers and allows me as a director to focus on external relationships. Through the entire process, we achieved our goal that no employee would lose their job or pay. This was at the same time when state agencies across the country were laying people off. In Idaho, many state agencies were issuing furlough days. Our realignment was well received by our employees with minimal complaints. Our realignment generated $5.7 million in savings the first year and another $7 million in the second year. These savings were reinvested back into the department's operations and an employee compensation plan that I will speak to later. Even with those savings, we were able to put more people on the front line of service. And the bottom line is this: we cut costs, all employees kept their jobs and pay, and we put more people on the front line serving our customers. As I mentioned, we used some of the savings for an internal compensation plan. Two of the biggest barriers we faced were employee compensation and our rate of turnover, especially for our transportation technicians. Now in Idaho, transportation technicians are the department's frontline workers who plow snow, patch potholes, and inspect construction, amongst other duties. Some of our districts were losing more than half of their transportation technicians annually, and approximately half the transportation technicians who left ITD did so within the first 5 years of employment, making our department a training ground for other opportunities. In addition to the cost of turnover, we estimated to be approximately $5 to $6 million annually. To address these problems, we adjusted employees' pay. And we knew we weren't going to get additional funds from the legislature, so we needed to use the salary savings that we had generated through our realignment. The compensation plan is having a substantial and positive impact on our turnover rate, costs, and the service that we provide on the front lines. So far in fiscal year 2013, the turnover rate for our transportation technician positions has been reduced to 0. If these trends continue, we will save an estimated $4.2 million by reducing employee turnover. That for a $1.7 million investment in compensation. And this also means that we have experienced snowplow drivers on the road handling these $250,000 pieces of equipment that you see in that picture there. Realignment positioned the department to develop a new mission and strategic plan that now serves as a cornerstone for our achievements and success. For the first time, our employee performance plans are tied directly to the goals of the strategic plan. And our goals, again for the first time, are directly aligned with Idaho Governor Butch Otter's plan for the state. Through realignment, ITD is being recognized as a state and national leader. ITD was recognized by the governor in his State of the State address for making his objectives to reduce government bureaucracy and costs, making quicker decisions, and improving customer service. The governor, the legislature, and the state's media have acknowledged the success of the department's realignment. I'd like to show you a short video that illustrates that success. Well, you've just seen how our success has been viewed, but with success, there's also several lessons that can be learned from the process. Our middle management was more focused on the process of realigning than on the goals of realignment. And that's not surprising because that's what they knew and that's what the organization previously valued. Employees were more interested in where their boxes were going to be moved. Supervisors who lost their supervisory positions and were put back on the front lines of service were concerned about losing status and input into decisions, even though they kept their jobs and their pay. And our letter to employees who were losing their supervisory role had too much legal type language in it. Realignment has allowed us to change our culture. We now have a strategic plan that for the first time has performance measures that cascade down through our divisions, sections, and units and into each employee's individual work plan. And these measures in their work plan are directly tied to our strategic plan goals. Through these measures, we are developing an organization that is flexible and adaptable by reducing layers. We are embracing a culture of innovation. Too often in government, you are required to do it by the book. Employees in that culture are often punished for not following procedure, even when the outcome could have been better. And now by measuring outcomes, we are encouraging competition amongst our districts and divisions. And every coach will tell you that when there's competition at every single position, that team is continuously improving, and we are improving. We are a better organization that is delivering improved services every day. This concludes my presentation. I hope that Idaho's experience can prove to be of value to you.